Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Whenever you're listening, we're filming. It's Sunday evening, November 19th, Thanksgiving week. Thanksgiving's on the way. Before we do that, we're gonna talk some Knicks. Intro music here. Do we have intro music? We're working on it. Yeah. Um, Welcome to Talkin' Knicks. I'm joined by Thomas J. Piccolo.
Hello, Jake.
Tom, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. This is my first time on Talkin' Knicks since the preseason pod. So,
Ooh,
yeah, we're
ooh.
back. We're back to talk Knicks.
Well, I'm sure you know the Knicks are undefeated, so we're glad to have you back on the show. What have you been up to in those past couple weeks?
I've been doing a lot of basketball podding, so just talking about the league in general. But you know what? I decided that the Knicks are the more interesting storyline here. It's Thanksgiving week. I'm thankful for Kristaps Porzingis, that's for sure.
It's
And
Thanksgiving time.
yeah, it's time for Kristaps. I know. I'm telling you, man.
Ooh,
We should just sing the whole pod.
I like that. Yeah, it's gonna be a singing pod, folks. So buckle up. No, Tom, we're glad to have you, Tom. I'll toot your horn for you. Besides a lot of basketball pods, you write some stuff for the Spurs on
It's true.
what's that website?
It's
Pounding the Rock.
SB Nation's site, Pounding the Rock. That's right.
So Tom actually has some credentials, so I would listen when he's talking and just throw it on mute the rest of the time. Speaking of throw it on mute, Greggy Poon, how you doing?
What's going on?
How are you?
Unlike Tom, I've been on every pod other than the intro pod, and
Yes,
I'd like to think I've become a fan favorite.
you're tough to say.
I mean, I
It's
have my
very-
doubts, but that's what I like to tell myself.
Very limited options.
Have you met a fan yet?
I have not, but I'd like to assume.
We'd love to meet you guys. Tom's going to give his home address at the end of the show. Greg, was it your birthday today?
It's my birthday today.
How about that?
Yep.
Happy birthday.
Birthday
Thank you.
pod.
Appreciate it.
Like a happy birthday or like one of those emotional, like I'm getting old and sad birthdays?
No, we had a fun time. We went out. I went out to lunch with my family and some good pals. We told some jokes, talked some Knicks. No, we didn't. We didn't do that part,
You
but
didn't record that part, but I thought I saw you at a parade, Greg. Is that true? Were you at a parade?
I was at a parade. I was at the Stamford Thanksgiving Day parade. They do like the New York pre-parade. They do a run through in Stamford right outside of my apartment. So I went to it.
It's actually kind of a hilarious thing with Thanksgiving, St. Patty's Day, and a couple other the holidays, because Connecticut being the middler state between New York and Boston, they normally have to pick like a pretty odd weekend to celebrate holidays. Like I remember they've done some St. Patty's Day festivals that were like, I don't even know if it's the same month, but I kind of like that, excuses to drink. But speaking of, at this point in talking Knicks, we'll get it going. I renamed the segments. I put a Walt Frazier twist on it. I'm gonna go recall the last week and balling and recalling. We had 3 games this week. The obvious one that we have to talk about first, not only because it was the first game this week, the Cleveland game, which, man, talk about, hey, the Knicks were the topic of the world. We did it. For some of the right reasons, some of the wrong reasons. LeBron had his just weird kind of out of nowhere trash talk to Frank Nitti, which was actually towards Phil Jackson, but delivered so poorly it got him into a street fight with Enos, and then Frankie Buckets kind of threw a shoulder into him, and the fireworks started going. The Knicks are blowing them out. Times are great, and then the best player on the earth takes over, Kyle Korver, and goes nuts. Really tough. I mean, I think the rest of the games, it was kind of an ugly night in Toronto. They lost that. They weren't getting any of the 50-50 balls. Jazz game, nice home comeback. But I mean, the main topic is going to be this Cleveland game, and I'll pass it to you, Tom. Where are you at on that, and the rest of the week as a whole?
Yeah, so I just went back and rewatched crunch time of that Cavs game, and I mean, really the turning point of it was with just under 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. Porzingis, very uncharacteristic of him, missed just clanged 2 free throws in a row. And I don't know if we want to chalk that up to his elbow pain that he's been having recently. He said it's not bothering him right now, but he missed those 2 free throws that would have put them up. I think it would have put them up 5, and it turned into a Channing Frye 3 on the other end. And on the next possession, Frank Nitti came down. He got ripped by Dwayne Wade, and that led to that possession where LeBron hit that ISO 3 on Porzingis that was making its rounds around the internet. So that was just sort of the defining sequence that put the Cavs up 3 and up for good in that game. And it really did start with those 2 missed free throws. And I don't want to throw too much shade at Porzingis because he's been very clutch, and the Knicks have been the best team in crunch time all year. So that was more of an aberration than anything, and not something I'd worry about. But I mean, that's just kind of how that game went down. What about you, Greg? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that's the crunch time turning point for me. The first turning point of, oh no, this is bad, was in the third quarter. We were up 23 with about we were up 20 with about 56 seconds left or something, and the Cavs had basically just given up. They took out their 5 stars and just put in 5 new guys. We're like, you guys are horrible.
Cedi Osman played 6 minutes.
Cedi Osman, you're in. They were giving up, right, basically. And then Hornacek matches that, and he's like, okay, you're going to do that. I'm going to take out Tim Hardaway Jr. and Enes Kanter right now with 50 seconds left. And They lost 5 points of the 20-point lead in those 50 seconds, which is tough to do, but they did it. And then being down 15 is way better than being down 20 going into the fourth quarter. And then second turning point, other than every single 3 that went into the basket, was LeBron, just his spin move and one where he just carried the ball even by NBA standards. I don't want to. Sounds like I'm a Homer Knicks fan saying that, but that was unbelievable. He just went full football player on it, cuffed it, dribbled it again, then got an and one layup, which you hate. And that got it to single digits for the first time in a long time. And so you were like, all right, well, fun while it lasted. And
yeah, I mean, the Cavs really did play possum there. We thought they were dead, and then Hornacek kind of let his guard down there for a minute, and that's kind of literally all it took. But I do have one axe to grind about Kanter, if you guys don't mind.
Grind that axe, Tom.
Look, like I said, I rewatched Crunch Time, and Kanter's man just kept screening for Kyle Korver. And any aware big man would have just hedged out a little bit to contest or just make life a little difficult for Kyle Korver. But Kanter was just flat-footed, possession after possession after possession. And so finally, with just over 3 minutes left, Hornacek had to put Lance Thomas in for him. But, I mean, the damage had been done. Kanter just couldn't even move his feet at all to try and stop Korver, who was clearly the hot hand there and who was carrying that Cavs offense down the stretch. It really bothered me seeing, because Kanter, he has that reputation of being not a very good defensive player, and just seeing it hurt them so tangibly there was, like I said, my axe to grind.
Yeah, and Tom, I know you brought it up to us kind of midweek this week that Kanter's got some advanced stats and some not so advanced stats that look pretty bad for him, right? Doesn't he have one of the worst plus minuses on the team at the end of the day?
Yeah, and I know people love the stats, so I'm gonna go.
Right.
We all say we're the stat guy, but I'm kind of that guy right now. So I'd look this up. Kanter right now, he does have the second worst difference in net rating on the team. So the Knicks rather are 10 points per 100 possessions better when Kanter sits on the bench, and that is obviously pretty telling. But he has some good advanced stats too, like you said. He's been the best player in the league on post-ups among guys who have posted up the ball, I think 40 times. So 23 players have at least 40 post-ups. Kanter ranks first in efficiency there, and Porzingis ranks third. So the Knicks are going old school with the post-up offense. But also Kanter's rim protection's been solid too. He's top 10 in the league in that among 51 players who have defended 55 shots at the rim. So some of these numbers look good, but when you just see the product as a whole, it is the Knicks are just frankly a better team with Kanter on the bench.
Yeah, I'm a little interested to see how that plays out on the front of. I want to say that's a little skewed right now. I think there's a couple. It's still early in the season. I think the Knicks bench is supposed to be a strength for their team, so I think you're going to see some decent plus minuses from them. But it's definitely something you can't ignore. And you mentioned those possessions, and Cantor's not known as a defensive guy. So I know, Greg, you were about to chime in something there.
Yeah, and coming off that bad defensive fourth quarter in the Cavs game, he didn't play in the fourth quarter of the Jazz comeback game. So shows you that sometimes he's not the perfect center to have on the floor. Maybe
Yeah,
crunch time. I mean, even with the Thunder, crunch time, he was on the bench a lot.
yeah. There's some teams he could not play against. His last playoff series with OKC, he couldn't get off the bench, which I think is going to be something to watch. I know, Tom, we're catching you up on these Talking Knicks. The one of the sexier topics throughout is the big man minutes with Willie hasn't been playing much, and I think we'll touch upon it a little later in the show. But I mean, kind of finishing the week in review, another great comeback win against the Jazz. The shooting guards, THJ and Courtney Lee, both played pretty well. And man, I'll say, if there's little, I still don't know how the end of this season is going to be spoken about in Knicks land, but man, the Garden's been rocking, which is just awesome. Again, I've been mentioning that every show, but it's really something that I mean, we got a taste of it the year that the Knicks finished second in the East that year, third in the East. I always mess. It always shocks me that it was second. But it's good to see that magic in the Garden. And at Toronto was just, man, that at Greg, your signature line is sometimes the ball doesn't go in, and there was a little of that going on, and just like, I don't want to say it was it didn't feel like a lack of effort, and it didn't feel like hideous basketball. It was just like not good. There's a great summary. Can you guys correct that?
At one point in the third quarter, the Knicks had 3 turnovers on the game, and they were losing by 21. So I think that summarizes how the game went. They just shot the ball and missed every single time. And I also wanted to mention that during the Cavs game, the Cavs just looked absolutely horrible at basketball. And that's kind of what the Knicks looked like during the Raptors game, during the first 3 quarters at least. The Cavs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable not talking about that Raptors game at all. I didn't think that was really representative of how the Knicks have played, and it just, that seemed like more of the aberration than anything. But the Jazz game, I thought was an awesome showing. In terms of crunch time, the Knicks pulled it out again. Hardaway and Porzingis combined for the team's last, I think, 14 points together, which is pretty amazing. And I mean, and Greg mentioned it earlier, but just to go back on Cantor for one more thing, he was taken out with like 3 minutes left in the third quarter. The Knicks were down by 8, and then they'd go on to outscore the Jazz by 13 the rest of the way without him in. And not to keep, I don't want to keep piling on Cantor here, because I know he's very valuable in some ways. It's just you wonder if he's the right fit with this team, and with Billy Hernangomez not getting minutes, and we saw him last year have potential to be a pretty special player. So I'd like to see at some point the minutes skew towards Hernangomez instead of Cantor, but we'll see.
I think you want to keep running him over Tom. TBH. But that's kind of the week that was. It's kind of a bummer, because I know Greg and I have been talking about pivot games in the week, and it was kind of awesome this week because we thought we'd kind of get the Cavs game. It was at home. The Cavs are still playing bad basketball. We said the Jazz game was going to be the pivot game this week, and I don't know. It'd be interesting if we won that Cleveland game. I think how we're depicting things right now, I think would be very different. I think we'd be upbeat Knicks are going to have a top 4 seed in the East, and now I think we've come back to earth a little bit, which might not be a bad thing. But
the narrative, Jake, that's what we say in the media.
Narrative. Well, I like to tell people I don't have a good brain. So moving on, and so this previously layup lines. I'm going warming and performing. I really like this one. I think that might have been the only good one I've used. So we'll go with it. And it was a layup last week, and I think it still needs to be a discussion, and it's part of a heavier discussion. But we got a good chuckle out of it. Noah came back. He's off his suspension.
He did.
We're talking about how he's going to fit in, and he DNP didn't dress for the game. So he's again, kind of living the dream, making a pretty penny, getting front row seats to every game, gets to hang out with the other players. Pretty nice situation. Tom, Greg and I have kind of delved into it last week. I guess you're kind of the new voice here. Give us some perspective on Noah, and where do you think he fits in with this Knicks team, if at all, or what do you have?
A DND, Jake. Did not dress. That's tough to swallow there.
Because I'm DND. Oh. I'm Joakim. Okay, that's not good. You got it.
Well, the guitarist of AC/DC, rest in peace, he passed away, Malcolm Young, yesterday. A lot of AC/DC.
You know how to clear out a room. Talking AC/DC.
All right, so Joakim Noah, I just saw a quote from him yesterday in the New York Post. I'm just going to read it real quick. It says, when asked if he foresees a role, Noah said, "What can I bring? I don't know." When asked if he feels he can still be close to the player he was in his 2013-14 campaign, Noah said, "Probably not. Probably not." So I think I'm sort of in line with Noah's expectations at this point. He seems like a pretty self-aware dude. I don't expect – Hornacek even said outright he doesn't plan to make any changes in his rotation in the near future. So I think what we're seeing now is going to be representative of what we see going forward. I don't expect Noah to play much of a role on the court at all. I think he'll be a professional in the locker room, a leader, a voice, but it's hard for your voice to carry any weight if you're not actually doing anything. So, I mean, we'll see how this goes. I'm not particularly hopeful, but, that's kind of not my role on this pod. So, Greg, any levity here?
Yeah, I think that Joakim Noah's contract is so bad.
How bad is it?
It's so bad that even if he played well, no one would take him on their team. That's how bad it is. And that's where Jeff Hornacek is at. He's like, I guess I could play this guy, but at the end of the day, there's no chance that we're going to be able to get rid of him. So you can't play him to build up his trade value because that value doesn't exist. Even if he, I don't know, he's not going to play like an all-star. Nobody expects that. And even if he did, would any people would be like, he was injured for the last year and a half. Are we sure this is actually going to stay? But we don't even have to worry about that because that's definitely not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the big man dilemma has been our biggest topic this season so far. And I mean, I don't want to deep dive it right now. I mean, I think you guys are right. I guess coming into it last week, I still expected the Cavaliers game is a great example. The game hit garbage time for 50 seconds and I don't know. I feel like that would have been an interesting time to see because I guess what I'm still in on is that Joakim Noah is and was, I believe, a good passer. So if he can play okay defense and he can pass the ball, with this team has moments where they move the ball really well. I think Joakim Noah for a big man can really swing the rock. So I don't know. I guess I was interested to see him in some potential lineups, but it looks like until there's a trade or until I don't know, until there's an epidemic in New York City, I don't think we're going to see Big Bro Joe, right?
Yeah, Jake, you know who else is good at swinging the rock and playing defense is, I know we're going to get to him later, but it's Kyle O'Quinn. I mean, Kyle O'Quinn, Kylo. So the Knicks, we talked about net rating before. The Knicks play they're 9 points per 100 possessions better when Kylo Quinn is on the court versus when he sits. That's the third best on the team. It goes Kristaps Porzingis, Frank Ntilikina, and then Kylo Quinn. So the fact that KOQ's been having a hard time just seeing floor time is really surprising to me.
Yeah, Kylo. This episode of Talkin Knicks sponsored by the new Star Wars movie coming out in a couple weeks. That's not true, but that'd be pretty cool, huh?
It'd be nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna. God, there's another. What's the industry term? I'm gonna table that for later with Kylo Quinn because I think it's gonna lead into more of the big man discussion, but also kind of what he's been up to. But we'll save that for a little bit. The other thing that I want to add to warming and performing, Michael Beasley. He came in versus Toronto. Only game he played this week. I think he had 10 and 6, and kind of led the Knicks comeback for a little bit. I think they brought it within 10, something like that. Again, in a game they played horrific. And I think the real secret reason that I wanted to bring this up was when we talked about the bench last week. I was kind of saying that Beasley's kind of the only one that hasn't found his role or doesn't know his role. And I was saying he's kind of going to be the wild card if the team's not clicking and something's not really happening, kind of throw Beasley at them. And that's kind of exactly what happened. They, basically all plans failed, all systems down. Hey, Beasley, go at it, kind of do some of your point forward-ish type stuff. He played some good basketball. I mean, I know Beasley's kind of the dying breed in the NBA of inefficiency and this, that, and the other. I'll bring it back to you again, Tom, because I know that the Greg and his brother Kenny are swag players, and Beasley's dripping with that. So they probably want him in the starting point guard role. But do you see Beasley having a regular role on this team? Do you see him having a regular role in the league? What do you think?
I don't know that he's really Hornacek's type of player. I don't think Hornacek's a swag type of player. I don't think he just doesn't strike me as that kind
Disagree.
of guy.
We got the first fight on Talkin Knicks.
I mean, I saw Beasley was asked a few questions about his playing time after the Raptors game, and he made some comments like he says, I think everybody wishes they played more. But then he went on to say, like, whatever the team needs, I'll do it. Like, if they just want me to clap on the bench, I'll do that. And then they asked him if he feels like he has had a hard time getting in sync with the Knicks organization. He said, to say the least. So, I mean, that's sort of some classic Beasley there, little mixed signals. But I think, again, he's a streaky type of scorer, and that's what he's going to be used as. If he's hot, you roll with him. But probably more games than not, he's not going to see much time or even have the chance to find out if he can get buckets.
Yeah, and the 10 points he scored it was nice of him to score 10 points in 12 minutes, but it was kind of like ugly. He just came in and he just took 3 ISO possessions in a row, and you were like, you weren't even in the game for the first 3 quarters. What are you doing? We didn't put you in the game to just go ISO 3 times in a row. And the third one of those, he just dribbled the ball out of bounds, and then he got a bucket, but it didn't count because he had previously dribbled the ball out of bounds. But he did have 10 points, 6 rebounds in the fourth quarter, and he had one really nice pass assist. But at the end of the day, it was ugly, and he was -9 in those 12 minutes that he played, and that's partially because everybody on the Knicks did a horrible job in the entire game, but it's also partially because he just was going ISO and not really in the flow of an offense. He was just going one-on-one. And is that what he does? I haven't – is that just the type of thing that he does?
Yeah, I think I think more or less. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of funny to see. I mean, he was – if you go by points per game, I think he was the 4th scorer or something on the Knicks, but obviously a skewed stat. But we're gonna move on. I think I'm gonna be able to spin the Beasley situation into one of my topics in deciding and dividing. Like, that's a terrible one. I got to get rid of that, but I'll let it ride for now. And it was actually a similar area of the show last week, but the bench mob. supposedly a strength on this team. I believe a strength on this team. And they kind of had a tough week. Nobody averaged more than 7 points per game. Kyle O'Quinn, who Tom just mentioned some great numbers on him, only averaged 12 minutes per game this week. He got 3 points, 5 rebounds per game. Dougie Fresh had a tough shooting week, 25% from three, 25% from the field. I'm going to table the next one I had on there, I'm going to start with the three guys a little bit because kind of going off of Beasley with Beasley, Lance Thomas, and Doug McDermott. How do you, Tom? You're my stats guy. I always reference you as that. How do you want to see those guys fit into this Knicks team? I mean, when it's right, Doug and Lance offense, defense makes a lot of sense. I mean, do you think it's sustainable? Do you see one of those guys taking an edge? Is it matchup versus matchup? Or just go Beasley all 48 minutes?
As tempting as the Beasley 48 option is, I mean, the thing is, that's the nice thing about the modern NBA is that these types of wings, you don't have to just play one at the small forward spot, right? Like you can have, like the Celtics do with Jaylen Brown at the 2 and, Jason Tatum at the 3 and Marcus Morris at the 4. Like you could run these guys at 2, 3, 4. And as long as you have some playmaking and Porzingis at the 5, then like that's a workable lineup. You know what I mean? So, or just being able to yep.
Playmaking with Noah at the 5, I think you meant.
With Noah at the 5, yeah. I think Frank Nitti at the 1, and then just like throw out some of those wings. Like Courtney Lee kind of counts as one, but I mean, play Lance Thomas and Doug McDermott together. Like Lance at the 4, Doug at the 3. The defense has been surprisingly good with McDermott on the court. So I don't even know that's necessary at this point to run him, like to sit him on defense towards the ends of games. He's been really good. So, I mean, one thing I noticed in the Cavs game was that Courtney Lee was starting on LeBron at some points, and that was a huge problem. He just did not have the size or strength and was just getting taken to task. So, I mean, not that McDermott could keep up with LeBron, but Lance is an option. There are no good options, but Lance is an option. Beasley is an option. Beasley's huge. They list him at 6'10". I mean, anytime LeBron, I think if he's going up against someone who's a primary ball handler like LeBron, he could do an okay job. Maybe he's not going to be chasing guys off screens and, like paying attention to off-ball action. But I think if you say, hey, guard LeBron, I think he's athletic enough. He could do that.
Yeah.
As well as anyone on the Knicks. Go, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, I love Lance Thomas, but I don't really like people who only play defense, to be honest with you. And he does that. He's like he shoots well from 3, but he dribbles the ball too much for me. Like he's had a couple good dunks, but like when he puts the ball on the floor, it just looks like he doesn't have a plan. He's just like, I guess I have to dribble to try to help the team. But then from there, he's not sure what he's going to do. Is he going to shoot it? Is he going to pass it? If he really commits to like the 3 and D, just stand in the corner kind of role, I think he'd probably be better off, to be honest. I like the guy. Put him in the game, knock down a couple threes. That seems to be what he was doing 2 years ago when he was like a really good addition to the Knicks. So get him back doing that.
I know Tom mentioned it there, kind of finishing lineups, and I know it's kind of a game-to-game thing, and there's different matchups within the game, and it's kind of it can be a good thing if someone's having a good night. Kind of let it ride, leave them in there, have them finish the game. In an ideal Knicks game, do we see Lance or Doug McDermott on the floor to finish a game? Do we think like if Doug McDermott's having a good shooting night, is he the ideal Knicks finishing the game kind of guy?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, I feel like we say this every week, but we want him to be like our Kyle Korver. We just need somebody who's knockdown, and he's not just a shooter. He runs well off the ball. He runs around screens. He gets people working. And if he's playing like okay defense, then he's a trustworthy offensive weapon. So he's worth playing. And same with Lance Thomas, but except like if he's playing great defense, then you could live with his offense.
Yeah, I mean, I like McDermott finishing games. Tim Hardaway Jr. is another guy we haven't talked that much about, but I mean, we mentioned at the top he's been really good.
Yeah, Tim had a good week.
He had a really good week. He's creating offense pretty efficiently. I mean, that Jazz game, he took one really dumb three that I thought was going to be, and then Porzingis took one like right after that I thought was going to be their undoing, and Joe Ingles hit a three to make it a one possession game. But I know we weren't just talking about Tim Hardaway Jr., but I mean, he's a guy who, yeah, there's a little tangent. But yeah, I think Frank Nitti, Tim Hardaway Jr., Doug McDermott, and then like Lance Thomas and Porzingis as a closing five. Do you guys?
Kyle O'Quinn, maybe.
Yeah,
Courtney Lee.
I like Porzingis. Yeah,
Courtney Lee's got to be in the finishing five.
Tom hates Courtney Lee. Tom, talk about how much you hate Courtney Lee.
I don't hate Courtney Lee. No, I know he had a pretty good week too. So it's just the team starts looking pretty small, but it's small ball, babe.
And he's a defensive stopper at the 2 position. He can't guard LeBron, but you put him on an Evan Fournier, then we'll talk.
Yeah, it's kind of the Knicks. we talked about it last show. How it's kind of funny that Courtney Lee was like our our number 1 option some nights last year, and it's all depending what his role is. Like Courtney Lee, Greg, you kind of said it best. Like when we're putting him ISO to guard LeBron, and like when he's our go-to option on offense, that's a tough spot for Courtney Lee. He's been in the league for a long time. It's 12 seasons or something like that, 12, 13 seasons, which pretty well. Good for Courtney Lee. But yeah, when he's the 4th scoring option or the 5th scoring option and he's guarding a not LeBron type, Courtney Lee's a pretty valuable player. And Jakey segues. Because he was my next topic in this. And this was kind of there was wavering thoughts this week. We've been all gung ho. We've been talking about Knicks. We mentioned the 7th playoff spot last week. We got all excited about that. And I know there's still a big part of Knicks Nation that's saying, okay, this was fun, but we should still probably be losing and get a pick. So this is, I don't know if this is hot take-ish. First take. Greg's a big Nick Wright fan. But do we think Courtney Lee finishes the season on the Knicks? I don't know. I guess that was a topic that came across because before the season it seemed like a no-brainer. And then this hot start kind of skewed things a little bit. Now, I don't know. He's still so much valuable on a contending team, right?
Well, yeah, I just want to redeem myself real quickly by amending that crunch time lineup because I really do think that Courtney Lee should be in it. I think it should be Frank Nitti, Courtney Lee, Tim Hardaway Jr., Doug McDermott.
That's where it starts to get tricky, right? Because now you're playing serious small ball and you have defensive liabilities, right?
I made my choice, man. I think that's the final 5. I really do. I mean, Frank Nitti and Courtney Lee defending the perimeter is really tough. And then Porzingis, guys, I want to hit you with a Porzingis stat that might just blow your mind. So I mentioned it a little bit, but so 51 players have defended at least 55 shots at the rim, okay? 51 players in the league have done that. Porzingis ranks 1st in rim protection by more than 10%. So the difference between Kristaps and the number 2 player, Paul Millsap, is the equivalent between Paul Millsap and the 24th place player. It's just his rim protection has been unparalleled this year. And so that's why I kind of think that, not that that's a sustainable number, because holding players to 36% shooting at the rim there has to be some luck involved there, but it's also has to do with being 7'3" and really long and able to jump.
Tommy stats, holy smokes!
Isn't that crazy stat? 10% better than anyone else. So that's why I have some faith in putting Porzingis at the 5 in crunch time lineups.
I'm gonna jump in with that, and I think I like that final 5, but I'd say if Frank finds his shot and he's an offensive weapon. I think you could sub out McDermott for Lance Thomas, but if he doesn't, then you need the offensive weapon rather than having Frank. But then back to answering Jake's question, I don't think it's possible to say right now, based on this start, whether Courtney Lee will last the season. It'll be a trade deadline decision. We'll see where the Knicks are in the standings, and I think that if they're like, I don't know, 2 or 3 games out, I think that they have to keep him, just because
you're a go for the playoffs guy. You're a casual. Hey, win the championship if you can. Right?
I'm one of those Knicks fans that roots for the Knicks to win. I know not all of them, all of them do that, but I think we're just gonna have to wait and see. And after not making the playoffs for a few years, getting the 8th seed is good enough for one season. I know you want to win the championship eventually, and having better draft picks might help you, but we're in a drought right now, and we'd like to make the playoffs.
I came into this season fully expecting the Knicks to tank and it having nothing to do with their decision to tank. I thought they were just going to be so bad that they had no other alternative. But I've been proven completely wrong on that. And I think all of us underestimated the leap that Porzingis was going to make this year. And so I'm with Greg here that if they have a chance to make the playoffs, I've completely flipped my script here. They should go make the playoffs. Like I think the experience that gets for the young guys, like you can't really, simulate that in practice, what that stage is like, what MSG is like come playoff time, or even at the end of the regular season when games truly matter. Like I'm fully on board that if they are in the running, they should go for it. I think Lee should end the season a Knick. I even heard some talk on Nate Duncan's podcast about Kylo Quinn becoming a trade asset with how well he's played, but with the way kind of how inconsistently Hornacek has been playing him, it's like they aren't really interested in building his trade value so much either. So, I'm on board with keeping the team together, and if there's a chance to make the playoffs, if Porzingis stays healthy, just go for it.
Jake, I got a good question.
Do
you think that Cantor, Kylo Quinn, and Willie Hernangomez all survive the season on the Knicks?
I'm going to say no. I don't know. I just think so. There's a lot of different things at play here, right? Because at first it was get the high draft pick. We still want to see Kristaps do well. We want to see Frank develop, and that's it. if we could lose every game at the buzzer, Kristaps goes for 30, Frank shows some potential. That was kind of the ideal season going in. Now it's kind of changed. Kristaps already has made the leap that we kind of expected to see, or we hope to see 2 years, kind of after this season. And they're playing some fun basketball, and it's kind of a diluted East, and now it's the experience thing, right? If there was rumors coming into this season that Kristaps didn't want to stay in New York because it was kind of a failing franchise. So then getting him to the playoffs, getting playoff experience, kind of building on that, that became the thing. So I don't know. For me, it's just tough. Kylo Quinn is very valuable, and he's a part of the bench. His future, when you're looking at the Knicks' future, you don't necessarily see him. And if he's not a part of it, you don't think it's a problem. Cantor's interesting to me because, like Tom said, there's some good stats, there's some bad stats. His contract's kind of tough, but he comes off the books next year, I believe. I think that would be something to watch because I think the thing that's frustrating, but Knicks fans haven't really been able to fully depict, is that Cantor's definitely better at it, but Cantor does what Willie does. Will Bill. I mean, if Will Bill does it at a B- or a C+, Cantor does it at an A- or a B+. So it's one of those things. I don't know. I don't know what potential deal could be out there, but so we talked about that experience, and they talked about Willie Hernangomez is a part of the future. well, we've got part of our future getting, DNP CDs. And at a certain point, are we going to lose a year of experience for Willie Hernangomez over trying to win the 8 seed? That just doesn't seem like good business for me. Whew! You like that?
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. And I'm thinking that if we're going for this 8 seed, one of those guys might be the asset to be on the way out to get a piece. That's another option. So it's either one of them going out in order to help us make the playoffs, or one of them going out in a fire sale for a draft pick. So either way, it would make sense for not all three of them to be on the team at the end of the year.
My vote would be for Cantor, but I think I made that clear already. I think that the option isn't whether to have Hernangomez sit on the bench and make the playoffs. I think that Hernangomez can play and still be in the running for an 8 seed. I think he's as effective a player as Cantor is when he's given a chance. I think he showed that last year. So, I mean, Cantor makes a lot of money. I don't know that, and he has a pretty high standing with the coach and the team. He sets hard screens. He rolls to the rim hard. He's one of the best offensive rebounders in the NBA. The Knicks actually are the best offensive rebounding team in the league, which is huge too. So, I mean, like I said, Cantor does do a lot of good things. I know I was hard on him earlier, but I think Hernangomez is really good too. So, was that your question? I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's one of the main underlying storylines of the season right now. So I don't know. It's tough to see, and then you start thinking of Knicks pieces that could potentially be traded at some point. And we've already mentioned Noah's an atrocity. Cantor, you'd get pennies on the dollars, or almost have to package something else with it. And when you start thinking of something else on the Knicks, it's basically Kyle O'Quinn or Willie. I guess Doug or Lance, but I don't see them having much appeal to other teams over than where they're at with the Knicks right now. So I don't know. Definitely something to watch. And I feel that's how that conversation always ends, but it really is. And I don't think you can make the final call on it. The other topic I had it seems we've been miles since I said deciding and dividing, and I'm sure the fans are glad I said that phrase again. But the other thing I'm going to pass the baton to Greg first, because I think we stand for sure on the same area. This is with Frank. There were points when, so it goes back to that whole concept, right? Where we're okay with Frank doing wrong at this point, right? Like we've seen the potential. We know what it can be, but we still know he's a 19-year-old rookie point guard in the NBA. And Greg and I were talking about how there's some times when teams are begging him to shoot and he's not pulling the trigger. And I'm not saying every time that he gets a little bit of space, jack it up. But man, if a defense is going to sag off you, like I forget which game it really set out. It was either when the Cavs game, when things were kind of coming down. I think it was Toronto too, when the whole team was kind of playing bad. It was like, hey man, pull it and see what happens. You've got a decent shot. Again, the numbers at the end of the year aren't going to be that pretty, but Greg, this guy's got to shoot a little more to at least extend the defense and have them extend to him, right?
Yeah, definitely. Frank, fire away. The one thing I'll say is he's got to fire away on catch and shoots the most. When he gets the ball, he'll pump fake and not even like it's like going through the motions. He's just doing a pump fake to pump fake. Everyone knows nothing's going to happen, but he just has to shoot that. But during this week, he started shooting more, but he was basically just dribbling around, and then he'd be like, "Oh, I guess I'm open. I'll shoot it." Then he would shoot it, but that's really not within the flow of the offense. That's more of I guess I'll shoot it. Which, take that too. Just get your shots up, but when they're giving you that space, drive. We don't want you just dribble, jump shot. That's ugly. You don't really want to see that from anybody, to be honest. And when you're getting your space, he's got to learn to drive too. So we just want him to learn how to do everything. Tom?
You're not going to hear any arguments from me, guys. Like, I think, rookies need to get their shots up and make their mistakes and take their lumps. You look at the bottom of the league in field goal percentage right now. It's all rookies, mostly rookie point guards. And, Frank's just got to get his usage rate up and learn by doing and all that. So, like, I'm on board with all that. I want him to make his mistakes. And, we don't want to do it to the detriment of the team because, like we said, we were talking about making that 8 seed potentially. And so there's definitely a balance there. And you also don't want to ask Frank to be a player that he's not, right? You want him to play within himself and be the type of player that he is. But at the same time, like Greg mentioned, the catch and shoot plays, like that's I mentioned Nate Duncan before. He calls those record scratches because if you're able to get a catch and shoot 3, like that's the result of good offense, right? Like typically. And so if you're getting a catch and shoot 3 and then deferring that chance, like it's a record scratch. It ruins the whole offense, and like you're probably not going to get a better shot than that. And so yeah, Frank's got to let it fly.
I like that. That was some good stuff. I expected bad stuff out of you guys, I guess. Yeah, no, I think we're fully on board with that, and but I guess we have kind of I don't know, we've low key talked about it is a definite high wire act at a certain point. If you're trying to win games and Frank's 0 for 3, 0 for 4 from 3, and he doesn't want to pull that shot, I don't know. It's going to be something to watch a little bit. I think we're all on team pull it. I think he's still a little, he wants to do what's best for the team. Like he definitely has that mentality, and I think right now he doesn't think his shooting is best for the team. So I don't know. I'd be very interested to hear what those kind of conversations would be like with himself, Hornacek, the team as a whole. I mean, you'd assume everyone's telling him to pull the trigger, right?
Definitely, they have to be. I mean, he's the future, and like I said, if we have another offensive weapon, then that just makes everything better.
Yeah. All right. Well, that finally for the fans, deciding and dividing is over. The buzzer beater used to be the big topic of the week. Now I'm going with dunking and flunking because I think you can either hammer it home or just blow the topic, which is usually my strength. But and this is tough. I've mentioned with Talking Yanks, it usually ended with, is the team good? I think we've already covered a lot of where the team is. We've danced around 2 names. And I'm going to start with the not so positive this one, which is tough, really tough. But Kristaps, I mean, he had his first kind of tough week amidst these rumors and stories of the elbow injury, this, that, and the other, which, of course, if you feed the media with that, they're going to take it and run with it. He goes 18, 6, and 2.3 blocks this week. And it's I don't know. We want to see this guy thrive and continue to be the 30-point per game guy. I mean, do we just have to – are we at the point where we're expecting up and down weeks, or is it kind of put the injury on high alert? Is it if the Knicks keep losing a little bit, do the rumors really start popping up that maybe he gets the surgery and calls it a year and they start going back to the tank route? Greggy?
I mean, I think the difference this week is that now people know that Kristaps Porzingis is the real deal, and they're defending him differently. The Cavaliers were double teaming him all game, so that's part of the reason why he had a down night. And I mean, he had an off game against the Jazz. I'll say that he didn't look very good. And then again against the Raptors, they had a long physical defender in Pascal Siakam or Siakam guarding him, and they were also bringing the double team when Siakam wasn't on him. And during the broadcast, they're pointing out that people are just being very, very physical with Porzingis, and he's flopped a little bit, which maybe refs have taken notice of, but he's also just getting hammered. And if he doesn't flop, he's not going to get that call. So I think the off week is partially or largely based on trying to figure out how they're going to defend him. And he is not really a gifted passer at this point in his career. He's averaging a career low 1.1 assists per game. And for your star player who has the ball or who you'd basically like to have the ball every single possession. You'd like to have them average more than one assist. And especially with the double team coming, there's an open man somewhere, and you're 7-3. He's going to figure out how to pass out of it, and he's going to solve it. I believe, at least, because once again, he could see over everyone just like he could shoot over everyone. He could pass over everyone, and when there's a wide open man on the other side in the corner for three, he's going to start hitting that guy. Hopefully, Tom.
Yeah, I think Greg nailed it. I mean, I'm not overly concerned about Porzingis's assist numbers right now, or even his 3-game shooting slump. I know Hornacek was just asked about that a couple days ago, and he said, "You baseball guys will like this." He said, "Didn't Aaron Judge kind of go through this? So relax, people, relax. He'll be all right, just like Aaron Judge." I don't know what that means, but Hornacek clearly does.
Yeah, you were wrong. I hated that.
You didn't like that.
I hated everything about that quote.
Blame Hornacek, okay? Like he's not team swag. I know that much.
No, we've danced around a few topics. So let's say it's around the trade deadline, and the Knicks are currently out of the playoffs. Say they're 9th or 10th in the East. How many games out of a playoff spot would you guys have to be to say, you know what, I'm okay with trading Lee or selling or Kyle O'Quinn, whatever it may be? And the other part that I wasn't really joking about, I mean, if they're in that spot and you're draft pick mode, I'm all, hey, Porzingis, get that elbow taken care of, get ready, get yourself right, give Frank more minutes, get Willie more minutes, all of that. How far out do we need to see the Knicks? Is it 5 games? Is it 3 games? Is it basketball is a tough one because it can swing a lot. It can also not swing a lot.
I think it's 4 games, Jake.
4? That's the number?
That's the number I'm going with. 5 is like 100%. You're done. But
okay.
4, I think the Knicks probably want to lean toward the draft pick if it's at 4. 3, you got to go for the playoffs because of the drought that we're in right now. So it's pretty funny how 1 game could change my mind like that. Or 2 games could be no-brainer one way and no-brainer the other way, just because I'm making stuff up right now.
Well, it's funny, Greg, because I was really going to say 3 games, and it's not hard. Like 3, if you're more than 3 games out, you shut it down. Like it's black and white with me. My thing is that I've heard, I don't know that much about college basketball, but I do know that there have been like 5 different prospects who have all been touted as like number 1 overall pick quality. There's Michael Porter, there's Marvin Bagley, Luka Doncic, that Mo Bamba guy out of Texas. I mean, there's like just a lot of talent at the top of this draft, which again is the, it's tempting to want to shut down Porzingis and get those somewhere in the top of that draft. But I think, just the spirit of the team, like for the good of the organization, you got to try and win games, right? Like there's something to that. And it's tough because you see all the success that the 76ers have had with their process and their very purposeful tanking and sort of what the future projects for them. And it is tempting to just say, like, let's suck it up for a couple of years. But, it does something to a player's psyche, and Porzingis obviously wants to be playing winning basketball with a competent organization, and I don't think he would take too well to just giving up, right? So he just strikes me as such a competitive guy that doesn't really seem like an option. So I think the Knicks should try and win games. Frank should let it fly, and if that leads to losses, so be it. And if not, great. Let's go to the playoffs.
Yeah, 5 was kind of the number in my head. It's tough because the other part of it is, like you just mentioned, with the mentality of going for the playoffs. I think the draft is very top heavy, but I think it falls off pretty quick too. I think the top five guys I really like. I think the top 7 guys are good, but the other part that's kind of tough is it's a lot of bigs. I don't know. It's going to be interesting because you don't want to do that NBA purgatory that can be a slippery cycle. Interesting to see. That's how I still end every statement. I'll work on that. Let's make it a more positive spin. And Tombo, you mentioned him. Tim Hardaway Jr. He had a good week. 22, 7, and 4 with 1.7 steals. Also, I very much thought this was of note. Only 1.7 turnovers per game. 42% from three, 48% from the field, 13 of 14 from the free throw line. And man, we talked about it while he was averaging 16 points per game to start this year, that he was playing kind of bad. This was good, and it didn't seem not sustainable. Tom, you wrote a delicious article on Tim Hardaway Jr. to start the season. Somewhat defending him, more so defending him from yourself, because at first you were pretty against the signing as a whole, I guess. Not fully, but you didn't like it. Now, I mean, where are you? What do you think about this guy?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question because, like you said, when the trade initially happened, I was pretty down on it, but I went through and looked through a lot of his video, a lot of his stats, and saw there was something of a player here that could work in the Knicks system, that wasn't just a catch and shoot guy. He could create his own offense. And then the first couple weeks of the season happened, and it was pretty dispiriting seeing just how inefficient he was. He just didn't. I mean, he was among the worst 3-point shooters in the league to a point there. But I mean, this past week he was, like you said, he shot 42% from three, but that was on 8 attempts per game. Like that's some volume, right? And that's what you want to see out of your, the guy you want to be your second fiddle in the offense, right? Just Tim Hardaway Jr., he has no conscience at all. Like I said, I mean, it was almost to his detriment against the Jazz there when he took that really bad three, but then the next possession down, he kind of got stuck and like the shot clock was winding down, and he just jacked one from deep, and it ended up being the nail in the coffin again for the Jazz. So, I mean, he's the type of guy who never wavers on his confidence. He's going to shoot regardless if he's got it going or not, and I respect that. So, it's nice to see him with an uptick in his efficiency the last few weeks, and I hope that continues.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I feel like I say this every single pod, but I feel like he just fires away from three, misses some open shots, makes some crazy shots. I know there was the one this week from like near half court at the end of the shot clock where he just like shot it. I don't know. It was weird, and it went in. That was good, but his driving is amazing. He finishes at the rim every single time, it seems like. And you don't think he's gonna, but he just does. At this point, I start to believe that he's going to make every single drive and miss every single three. But that's miss every single open three and make every single contested three, I should say. But I'm all in on this guy.
And Tom, wasn't one of the stats you dug up that his finishing numbers last year were upper echelon, right?
Yeah, I mean, he does a great job of getting into the 10 and finishing. And one thing he's just really good at, and among the best on the team and maybe even the league, is playing in transition. I know he had a huge one against the Jazz too, like a nice run out where when he's out in the open court, he's so quick and just so crafty. You really don't expect him to miss any of those types of layups. I'm looking at the stats now. He uses 20% of his possessions on transition plays, and he makes 1.18 points per possession. So it's 63rd percentile in the league. It's good, right? It's not. I bet that number is going to start going up too, because he's just watching him. You see, he's one of the better players in the open court, especially for his size in the league.
Yeah, and this is where I got that they somewhat overpaid. I mean, it was he was a restricted free agent, so there's a little overpay there. In the world of shooting guards, it wasn't a crazy contract. I mean, the thing that was tough was he finished last year for Atlanta. I forget how many games or how many months it was post All-Star break. He averaged something like 18 points. And you kind of thought, okay, that was a good stretch of games. Maybe it's a little out of his his comfort zone for this year at least. 18 was kind of my number for this year. He was going to be the straight up second fiddle from the start. He was going to get a lot of shots. I thought 18 was kind of the number. I think this guy's going to be a 20-point per game guy this year. He like Greg kind of joked or hinted at, or not really. This guy's missing the open ones, which feels like there's a lot of room for error to be corrected there. But yeah, he's a shot taker, a shot maker, a creator. I don't know. I know Kenny Poon, who's not on today, his bold prediction was Tim goes for 50 in a game this year. I don't know if I'm in on that yet, but man, I think for now, this guy's the 20-point per game shooting guard that the Knicks were hoping and praying a little bit that they signed. Well,
and no thoughts on that. No.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I was actually just looking up some stats, believe it or not.
No.
So, yeah, Tim Hardaway Jr., he's taking 2 wide open threes per game, and he's making 37.5% of them. That's just not very good. So,
Right?
For comparison, Kristaps Porzingis taking 2.4 wide open threes a game, making almost 53% of them.
I feel validated right now.
Yeah, it's nice when the stats back up the eye test. And so
I hate that.
You hate that.
No.
I know. So actually, this is even better. Hardaway leads the team in open threes. So on NBA.com, an open three is when a player is 3 feet from you, 3 to 6 feet away from you. Wide open is 6 or more feet away. So Hardaway averages 4 open threes per game, and he shoots 28.6% on them.
Thank you, Tom.
He doesn't make his open or wide open threes at a good rate at all. So that is to say, you expect those numbers to come back to earth.
Can we get some contested numbers? Are those with those, or is that going to be more work?
No. I mean, I could get those too, but
yeah. Well, Tom hunts those down because he's our goddamn stat guy. Sorry. No, I mean that's what I'm saying. I mean, with those numbers you just threw at us, Tom. I mean, Tim currently on the year is averaging 17.5, 4.4, and 3 assists. I mean, and I think those numbers you just fed us are just feeding all the ideas me and Greg have been yelling at people just without statistics behind them.
Yeah, we were just like, you're going to have to take our word for it. He's missing stuff.
He's missing open threes.
Yeah, but now that we've been validated, you can trust everything that we've said so far on this podcast.
Yeah.
Is that true, Jake?
No. I wouldn't say that. Through Tim's, so let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So his last 9 games, I'm just going to read off his points per game. 23, 21, 16, 19, 26, 4 against Sacramento, which is a tough one. 28, 26, 13 against Toronto. So, I mean, you take out that 4 as the outlier because we're Knicks fans and I can do that. I mean, that's 20 plus. Those are big numbers. So
the 4 also didn't matter because we won by 30. So
right.
Or 27.
Right.
27 is the actual number, but we'll round it up to 30 for the fans.
We'll call it 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just real quick, Hardaway shooting about the same percentage on tightly contested threes as he is on wide open threes. So
that was 37?
Yeah, about that number, 37.
Yeah, so you would expect someone to shoot better wide open. Is that true? Is that true?
That stands to reason for me, yeah.
I hate when we do hot takes on this show. It really grinds my gears.
It's the lowest common denominator stuff, but, that's what sells.
Thank you, Tom, for the stats.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks. Well, thank me.
That was fun.
And the last topic that I'm not even going to touch upon was I was going to ask if anyone was bailing on the team, kind of go full tank mode like we had our fun this season. And I think we've already made it clear that we're not. Keep the ball rolling. I think we all pretty much said that the experience of kind of going for the playoffs and getting in the playoffs could be just as valuable as the potential draft pick that they're missing out on. I don't know if that's hot take-ish or not. But Let's go. Let's start winding it down with. I like this one too. I went with running and upcoming. Now that I said it, I don't like it. But we've got 4 games on the slate this week. We've got the Clippers at home, who are in a horrible funk. We get Toronto at home, at Atlanta, and at the Rockets, which is back-to-back games as well, back-to-back days. Excuse me. Tom, would any expectations, things to watch?
Yeah, well, I mean, we wouldn't be a Knicks podcast if we didn't note that Tim Hardaway Jr. is expected to maybe miss tomorrow's game against the Clippers with a foot soreness. So,
Yep.
Look out for that. Hopefully that's not a lingering thing, but maybe just some maintenance stuff. But, he's a huge part of the offense, so if he misses a game in LA against the Clippers, like, that's a big loss. So, yeah, we'll see about that. Also, the back-to-back at the Hawks and then the next night at the Rockets. I can't imagine that Rockets game going well. Like, that's the best or second best offense in the league, and the Knicks defense is hit or miss as it is. So on the second night of a back-to-back on the road, that's going to be brutal.
I'll say that I think it's good that we're playing the Rockets on the second night of a back-to-back because we're going to lose to them anyway, if we're all going to be honest. So you would rather have them be the second night of a back-to-back. Huh?
Okay.
How's that for a hot take?
Look, I kind of don't hate that.
Like Jake was saying, as far as giving up on the team, like at this point, Porzingis has been so good and just shown a ceiling that I never thought he had. I mean, I had high hopes for him, but not like this, like 30 points per game, take over the game, shut down other teams, best player. I don't know. Like, his defense has been incredible. His offense has been incredible. So I just didn't expect this. The rest of the season's gravy for me. Like, the fact that Porzingis has even been this good and had this potential, and he's only 22 years old. I mean, that's another 8 years of prime and development out of this guy. So, yeah, whether they go for the playoffs and just miss, or they end up completely sucking the rest of the year, like, and get a great pick and then have a 3-person, 3-person base of Porzingis, Ntilikina, and this third pick, like, it's all good, man. Like, you have a player this good, this transcendent. That's what wins championships in the NBA. So people are going to want to come play with Porzingis. That helps in the free agent market. It just, everything falls into place when you have one guy who's this good. So, yep, it's all good for me, man.
Tommy, right. Big pictures.
Jake. I'm gonna go through the week with you. So the Clippers game. I just found this stat. The Clippers have beat the Knicks 10 times in a row.
Oof. Gotta end.
It's gotta end. So let's take the W there. The Raptors just beat us by a lot without Serge Ibaka, Norman Powell, and Delon Wright. I don't know how much Delon Wright plays, but he's on the team and he didn't play.
I like him.
So that's bad that happened. So I'll be honest with you, Raptors game, I'm probably gonna put it in the loss column.
Okay.
For now. We'll give ourselves a 40% chance of winning that one.
I'm calling that the pivot game of the week, Greg, because I think we're expecting to win the Clippers game. We'll see with Tim Hardaway Jr., but they've been playing some bad basketball. We'll see. Toronto seems like the pivot game and kind of an interesting game, right? Because this was the first game that this Knicks team has played like ugly basketball. So you're kind of going to think you that sports mentality, like, okay, we went up to their place, we didn't bring our A game, now they're coming to our house, let's give them the goods. That's what you'd want to see.
Yep.
I think that's definitely the pivot game. And where I thought Tom was going with Tim Hardaway Jr. was his return to Atlanta. I think that's going to be kind of interesting. A team kind of doesn't match your offer sheet. That's it's kind of an awkward thing. Like, oh, that team thinks you're worth that much? No thanks, brother, man. So I think that's something to watch if Tim laces them up at Atlanta, and at second night back-to-back at Houston. I'm positive spin. The last time they had a back-to-back, I was big on, well, hey, they're probably going to conserve some minutes and we might see some Willie, which we did. So hey, if it's going to be a free flowing game against Houston, hey, get Willie in there, have Frank jack some threes, and again, that's a huge see what's there, and pull Frank aside before the game and say, hey, man, we're going up against Houston and James Harden. We're going to need points tonight. If you're open, jack it up. That would be my what to watch for.
So what do we got? 2-2? 2-2.
So it's I'm saying
you got. Sounds like you might have 3-1, but me and Tom got 2-2.
2-2.
Toronto's the pivot game. Yeah, let's say 2-2. The Knicks have slowed down a little bit. I'll be optimistic for 3-1. So guys, final thoughts and anything you think we missed or we should have covered throughout the Knicks org.
I really jumped the gun on my final thoughts. Like that whole the rest of the season.
Oh my god,
thing,
that was awesome though.
That was clearly my final thoughts, and I thought I was done. I was ready to pack it up, but no, I said all I need to say.
All right, I'll say that we're going to want to watch for how people continue to guard Kristaps. We're going to want to watch to see if he becomes a better passer and if he starts getting some calls on this physicality. People are just throwing him around. If people get 1 or 2 fouls on that call in the first half, that'll be huge for us. And that'll limit that throughout the rest of the game. So watch out. And watch out for Kristaps to come back with vengeance once he starts getting those calls.
Yeah, Greg, I like the Kristaps passing a lot thing because I think Tom made the great point that Kristaps showing that he can do this has already kind of opened up Pandora's box for the Knicks. It's kind of a world that we didn't even know we'd have an opportunity to get to. And now it's going to be I wouldn't even say necessarily his next level, but if he can start passing out of those double teams, and Ken loves to touch upon it, how Kristaps does straight up shoot over people because he can. He's 7'3" with that wingspan. Sometimes he doesn't even do a move; he just rises up, shoots it. You're right. You'd like to think that echoes over to passing, which is normally something I don't feel strong about because you guys know I love the point guard. I just love that position, and when they're passing, that makes the whole team better and all of it. Kristaps doesn't necessarily need that creativity or dynamicness just because he'll be able to see everything. So yeah, I love that as a what to watch for. And yeah, Frankie Smokes, pull it, babe.
I think we said it all.
All right, boys. Well, it was a pleasure. Thanks for listening. Thanks for talking Knicks with us. Give us follow us on Twitter. We got John Boy and some of the other guys putting out some tweets and gifs that'll rock your socks. Oh boy. And yeah, check out. We got some good articles on a lot of basketball. Talking Knicks. I'm doing some Talking Husky stuff. We still got Talking Yanks going on. We're just talking, babe. So thanks for listening. And we'll see you boys next week. All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Can't wait.